You're awake now, aren't you? Thank you so much for coming. My name's Kimberly Love. Hi, how are you? Nice to see you again. For those of you who don't know, I am Lee Patterson's daughter. Yay. Well, most days that's yay. Some days she doesn't say yay, but I think she likes me today. So, and I am the Development Director at Global Links. We are an organization that rescues medical surplus and puts it to work to improve health in others around the world. I'm going to introduce Stacy Bodo to you. She's going to tell you a little bit more about Global Links tonight. Thank you so much for coming out.
Yes, thank you all for being here. It's really nice to spend some time here with you tonight. I know a few people have heard of Global Links. I know Lee has. And then I think Kimberly said you were on a tour. Anybody else? Okay, so is this new information? Yes. Great, I love that. Okay, so I'm going to tell you our story, show you some photos, talk about the impact of the work we do, how you could potentially be involved if you choose to be. Feel free to interrupt me with questions. This doesn't have to be formal. Just, let me know what you're wondering about. So Global Links is a nonprofit organization here in Pittsburgh, and we were founded in 1989, so 35 years ago now, by 3 women. And they were doing similar type of work with a different nonprofit. They had some thoughts about how they thought it could get done better and didn't really feel heard where they were, so they left and started Global Links. And here we still are today, 35 years later. They started in one of our founders' living rooms and really grew it up over the past 35 years to encompass this building that we're now housed in, which is a 58,000 square foot building. So we've really grown a lot over that time. And founded with this mission, which has largely remained unchanged in all these years. But the idea is to improve health in communities with need by rescuing surplus that's already in the system, right? So when I'm talking about surplus, I'm not talking about expired items. I'm not talking about broken items. I'm not talking about outdated items. I'm talking about perfectly good items. They are not expired. They are just as we would use them. One of the things that we always say at Global Links is, would you use this for your mother? And if you wouldn't, we don't want it, right? So it's exactly how it should be used in a hospital in any kind of setting. But for a whole lot of reasons, which I'm going to touch on, it can't be used where it is. And so the option is that they discard it. Or the option is they work with us. And I'll tell you about how that happens. So basically, our model has these 4 pieces, which is the medical surplus recovery, volunteer service, and then we do both international medical aid as well as domestic medical aid right here in the Pittsburgh area. So I always love to start with this photo of our building. It's a huge building, as you can see. But as you can also see, what do you see on the roof? Solar panels, exactly. So we got a grant in 2020 by Green Mountain Energy Sun Club and Scalo Solar to repair our roof and then add these solar panels. And this was really exciting for us because part of our mission is the environmental side, right? We're trying to reduce the environmental impact. And so to be able to put these solar panels on our roof and use less energy was super exciting. Part 2 of this grant came with more money that we could swap out our old halogen light bulbs that were in the warehouse and replace them with LEDs. And so having those 2 fixes put us at a 100% solar powered in this really big building. Now, we all live in Pittsburgh. We know it's not the sunniest city on the planet, right? So to be able to say that we're 100% solar powered in a big building like this in a very cloudy city, I think is super impressive. Part 3 that we're hoping for is to get more funding to do the same thing to the back part of the building. And then we'll actually have energy to sell back into the grid. And so we'll have a revenue stream to help support our programs. So that's what Kimberly's working on now, as well as a million other things that she's working on. Okay, so medical surplus recovery. First question people always ask me, where does it come from? And the second question is, why do you get it? So left-hand column is a whole bunch of lists of where it comes from, right? So obviously hospitals, we get the vast majority of our supplies from. But it's so much more than that. It's senior care and assisted living places like this. It's businesses, it's universities, it's the public. We'll talk about all that a little bit more. And then why do we get it? Here's a whole list of reasons about why we get it. The top reasons, again, you'll see none of them say I didn't want it, it was outdated, it was expired, because none of that's true, right? They're all perfectly good items, but for a lot of reasons they can't stay where they are. So I always like to compare us to the Goodwill of medical supplies, right? If you have clothes or home goods that you can't really use anymore, but you know they're not garbage, that somebody else could use them, you just drop them at Goodwill and somebody else could buy them. Nothing like that existed for healthcare. And so that's where Global Link sort of fills in and takes that role in healthcare. So this photo on the left here is very typical. You'll see this in all the hospitals in and around the area. We work with all of them. And we have these on the targeted floors where we get the most supplies that are good for us. And so as this nurse is clearing out a room, instead of throwing the items that weren't used into the trash, she can put them into our bins. One of our drivers picks them up every week. We have volunteers that help us sort them and get them packed up, and then they go to public health institutions. We work in Latin America and the Caribbean and Pittsburgh area. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But any place that has a healthcare clinic, like a building, and they have a healthcare worker on staff that they can pay, as long as they have those things, we're happy to help fill in with the other items they need to keep their population healthy. You may ask me, why would she be throwing out these perfectly good items from a hospital room? And the reason is, when you go to the hospital, you go to the room, there's all kinds of supplies in there that your doctor or nurse might need to treat you while you're there, right? Your insurance company is billed for all those supplies and pays for all those supplies. So then you leave a few days later and the room is still full of supplies, but they've already been paid for, so they can't be used again. And it doesn't make sense in the hospital for them to take the time to physically move the items back to the inventory closet, go in the system and unbill. So they just have to get rid of them. So previously they were going just in the waste stream, but now instead they can come to us. I mentioned universities. We work with a lot of universities. Pittsburgh has a lot of them. These beds happen to have come from Duquesne University, but if you were in our warehouse today, you would see beds from Pitt, from Carnegie Mellon, and from Kent State in Ohio. We have all of those. So this happened a few years ago. Duquesne was rehabbing one of their dorms. It was 500-bed dormitory. It turned out it was going to be less costly for them to just throw away everything inside the building than it would be to pay to store it for the duration of the construction. So dormitory furnishings are actually a really good fit for healthcare because they're made for multiple users, and so they have to be solid wood rather than particle board. You can see the mattresses are really easy to wipe down and clean. This is really good for a healthcare setting. So we took these beds as well as a whole lot of other furnishings in that dormitory, and within 6 months they were all gone, out the door. The left-hand photo here is a clinic in Honduras. They had been hit by a hurricane and lost everything inside their building. So we were able to provide these beds for them to rebuild their clinic. And the photo here on the right happens to be in Nicaragua. So Nicaragua has the second highest maternal mortality rate in the Western Hemisphere. Haiti's first and then Nicaragua. And the Ministry of Health there really wanted to do something about this. And so they came up with this idea. There's so many rural parts of Nicaragua that women didn't have access to really easily get to a clinic or a hospital to have an attended birth. And so they built this system of over 300 maternal homes around the country with access to the rural areas. So women can come, they can be seen, there's dormitory style housing, they can stay there, they can be seen by a nurse or midwife, have an attended birth with a doctor, stay a little while after the baby's born, and then go home with a healthy baby. Prevents a whole lot of very preventable death. And so out of those 300 maternal homes in the country, Global Links has furnished about 170 of them with university furnishings from right here in Pittsburgh. So pretty exciting, and it's certainly making a difference, to the women and children in that area. So internationally, you obviously got by now that we work in Latin America and the Caribbean. We work through the World Health Organization. Everything we do goes through them. We're not trying to go in and tell somebody else what they need or what we have and figure out how to use it. It's very targeted. So it's asking the questions, what do you need? What are the issues you're working with? Where are your countries of priority? And how can we help you do the work you're already doing, right? So all through the WHO. This photo here is a photo in Bolivia. This was a few years ago. It was the first time we worked in this community. Now this community in Bolivia is high in the Andes Mountains, and so although it's not far by miles from a main city, it was very hard to get to the main city. And so the mayor of this town really wanted a clinic for his people. And so he started working on ways to fund that. So when our team goes someplace, they always ask, how long does it, like they do a whole needs assessment to decide if we can work there. They ask, how long does it take your citizens to get to the nearest clinic or health center? And it's very common to hear 2 to 4 hours. Can you imagine 2 to 4 hours? And that's walking, maybe it's on horseback. If you're lucky, you find a pickup truck to hop in the back of, but it's a hard 2 to 4 hour journey. So this community told us 8 to 10 hours, right? So if you're in labor or having a heart attack or you've had an accident, you're not getting to that clinic in time. And so that's why it was so important for them to build their own. And so the mayor was able to find the money, he built the clinic, they got the healthcare worker. Here's our first shipment coming in. You can see around the edges, it's all kinds of exam tables and furnishings and file cabinets, and they have them decorated with streamers and balloons, and everybody's out to see the donations, to see their new clinic, because it's that valuable to them. And when you think about the fact that this stuff that you see was literally going to be discarded here in Pittsburgh, like our garbage, you know, it really, you can see how important it is, and making this match just really can change lives in so many ways. That man in the middle with the confetti in his hair and the big smile, that's the mayor. He was instrumental in making this happen. He was having a great day. This is more stuff that came in on the shipment. Some of our team was actually there when this picture was taken, and they love to tell the story. This nurse up front here, they wanted to try out this bassinet thing, and so she just called back into the crowd, who's got a baby? And they passed the baby up, and then they put the baby in the bassinet for the photo opportunity, but everybody was really excited. Here's more stuff on that shipment, mobility aids, walkers, and crutches. Can you imagine? I mean, there's some walkers in the room right now. If you need one and you don't have one, how much more difficult your life is. So just to be able to have access to this kind of stuff. And these are all things that people had used for a while but no longer needed in Pittsburgh. And so they brought them to us. And then we were able to clean them up, make sure they're in perfect condition so we can offer them out to other people who need them. Wheelchairs, same thing. We have a wheelchair workshop at Global Links, and so we have this group of about 7 guys. They all happen to be retired. It is not a requirement, but it's just how it goes right now. And they come in every week and they work on these wheelchairs for us. And so sometimes it's just simple cleaning, sometimes it's adjustments, sometimes it's switching out parts, and sometimes they're beyond repair, but they may have a few good parts on them that we can take off of them. And so they work to make them beautiful and brand new and clean. And then we can offer them out. They stay in Pittsburgh, and they also go internationally. This is in Nicaragua. This man was 100 years old when he received his first wheelchair. So you can see the smiles on his family's face. They said it's such a life changer to be able to go to work and feel good knowing they didn't leave him in bed by himself for the day. They can put him in a chair, and he's got mobility and independence now. And again, these were all chairs that were no longer able to be used by the person who had them before. So domestically, we work right here around Pittsburgh, like I said. Leading into the pandemic, we had about 30 partners in Pittsburgh. We worked with a lot of free and charitable clinics, some senior centers, but not a whole lot. They were getting, if stuff's going to go overseas, it needs to be good dated for 15 months, so they were getting the supplies that would expire within like 8 months. Still good, but just didn't have time to make the journey, right? But then the pandemic hit. And everything changed, and all these different organizations locally needed the same things. And so we really switched to be able to work locally. And so from March to December of 2020, we went from 30 partners to over 1,200 partners here in Pittsburgh. Here's a list of the different types of partners we started working with and we continue to work with, right? So really just trying to help our local populations meeting their basic needs. Things are continuing to get harder for a lot of people since the pandemic. It's not gotten easier, and so just basic kind of healthcare needs people are struggling to meet, and I'll talk about that a little bit as we go through. These are items that are most commonly needed in this area and often not needed as well. So we accept these from the public. People move from different stages of life. You have the item, you need it for a while, you don't need it anymore, somebody else does need it. These stay locally here and around Pittsburgh. All the items you see here are not covered by Medicaid, they're not covered by government assistance programs, food stamps, SNAP benefits, so these are cash purchases. And it's really hard for a lot of people on fixed incomes to afford these, so people can drop them off, like I said, and then we can offer them back out, make sure they're in good condition, and make sure people who need them get them. Nebulizer, same thing. Anybody ever had to use a nebulizer? Yeah, so kids need them a lot. Sometimes seniors need them. If you have chronic respiratory illness, you need them. Sometimes you just need them for a flu season. It vaporizes the medicine, and you just put the mask over your face so you can breathe it in. Well, these also, if you have, good insurance policy, you go home with one when you need it. If you're on Medicaid, Medicare, you get one for 5 years. If you're a daily user, sometimes one for 5 years is not enough. And that's what happened with this little girl. She goes to Pittsburgh Public School. We work with Pittsburgh Public Schools. In the north side, for whatever reason, the nebulizer she had, she didn't have anymore. It was broken. So the family was driving, 30 minutes from the north side to McKees Rocks to borrow a family member's nebulizer before taking her to school in the morning. And the school nurse was wondering why she was coming in late all the time and asked some questions and found this out and called us and was able to request some extra nebulizers, so that she would just have one in her home and whenever she needed it. So of course we were happy to provide that. These come in from all over the country. From 46 of the 50 states so far, we've gotten nebulizers sent in to us because nobody knows what to do with them when they're done with theirs. Nobody wants them back. Diaper distributions, we started hosting these during COVID. It turns out, I imagine nobody's got young children in here, but maybe somebody has grandchildren, babies, anybody? Great-grandchildren? No. Wow. Do you have any idea what diapers cost? Probably you're far removed from that. Diapers now cost $80 to $100 per month per child, which is a lot of money. They say 1 in 2 families in Pennsylvania are struggling to afford diapers for their kids. And so we distribute diapers to the public. We'd hold these drive-up distributions. We have another one coming up on October 13th. These need to be sponsored because we do have to buy the diapers, but we get to buy them at a bulk rate. Angela Garcia in the purple shirt is our executive director, and then Kathy Battle is the executive director of the Diaper Bank, and we work with them. She gets the best rate she can get. We buy truckloads, we distribute them, people drive up, we put them in their truck, or in their car, you can see it right here. So we give them about a month's supply. During the pandemic, we would see 400 or 500 cars come through in a 2-hour period, and we thought that was a lot. The last 2 we've done, we've had 700 and 800 cars, which tells us the need is getting bigger, not less. Diapers are one of the fastest rising cost items with inflation. So something like 42% inflation over the last few years. And obviously they're a necessity. They are also not covered by any sort of government assistance program. So if you're on food stamps, you cannot buy diapers with that. You have to use cash.
Where does the money come from to buy all those?
Oh, great question. We get grants. We get corporate sponsorships. They cost about $30,000 for us to do a diaper distribution on that scale, and so we ask corporations or foundations to pay for that. And so the next one is sponsored by the McKeesport Hospital Foundation. We're doing it in McKeesport, and the hospital wants to see, money go to those sort of things, so they support us in making it happen. Personal care items. This is another one. None of this stuff is covered by any sort of government assistance programs or food stamps, right? So when we started asking all of our local partners, those 1,200 organizations we work with, what do you need most? Without fail, it was soap and toothpaste and shampoo. That's what all of our clients need, and they can't go to the food pantry and get those items. So they have to buy them in cash. Think about what you might spend on, toiletries in a month. Think about being like a teenager and having to go to school if you don't have deodorant or toothpaste, and like what kind of social isolation that would lead to. Just all the things, right? So this is another thing we started trying to get Well, first we started asking our volunteers, we put the top 7 items together on a list. We said, hey, buy one of each, put it in a Ziploc bag, bring it to us. We'll make sure we get it to a partner who's serving families that need these. And that was great. And thousands came in, and it was awesome. And we also know that the food bank here in Pittsburgh serves 47,000 families a month. Right, it's a lot. We were doing maybe 6,000 kits that first year, so obviously there's a huge gap. If you're food insecure, you probably also need these items. So our goal is to serve everybody who's food insecure, to be able to give them these things as well. So this year we got a bunch of grants. The United Way, we're one of the Impact Fund recipients through the United Way, so when corporations donate to the United Way, we get some of that money for these kits. We have different corporate, like UPMC did a big chunk of money to sponsor these kits, Cigna Healthcare. So different places are sponsoring them so that we can also bulk purchase them. We get the best rate around. And then we have people can either put them together outside of Global Links, like schools and clubs and church groups do it regularly for us, Rotaries, or the ones that we bulk purchase, we work with a bunch of different schools that bring students with disabilities in to volunteer with us. Every day of the week we have a different school group, and they come every week. And then they work on putting together those kits for us. It's great workforce development training for them. 2 of our graduates last year had been with us for a few years putting these kits together, and their moms separately called us to say that they both got jobs. One got a job at Dunkin' Donuts and one got a job at Chick-fil-A, and she was literally crediting the work that they did at Global Links with the sorting and counting and packing that built the skills for them to get these jobs after they graduated high school. So not only is it providing these kits to people who need them, but it's also providing some job training to students, so that they can go on and live independent lives as well. More mobility aids. We work with a lot of local organizations here. To make sure the seniors that need them here have them. Sometimes it's taking them home. Sometimes it's just providing them for events. There's a group called Age Friendly Pittsburgh, and then when there's events in parks in different areas, they like to have a bunch of wheelchairs available so that anybody can come and enjoy the event. And then community and volunteer engagement. You might ask me, how does all this work get done? Because we're actually a very small team. We're about 25 people at Global Links, and not even everybody's full-time. So we rely on volunteer labor to get all this work done. We very purposefully combine volunteers of all backgrounds and ages and abilities together in our center. It's like, you did the tour, right? Was there a lot of people there when you were there that day, volunteers?
Yes.
So it's like popping all the time, right? Sometimes we have 30 people working on different projects, and they make it fun, and there's music, and it's very social. And while they're having this good time, we're also sorting and packing medical supplies. So here's some photos of people who would come in and sort supplies. Supplies will just get dumped on the table. You just are like item matching, or you're packing items that somebody puts out. All of it's done with help by our team. We have volunteer supervisors who work with everybody on these projects. We host corporate volunteer groups. It's a great team building activity. We ask corporations to provide a contribution to go along with this team building activity that we're providing, and so that's also how we help fund some of our programs and getting the items to where they need to go. We host family volunteer days in December, 2 Saturdays in December. We have 4 different family volunteer days where we invite in families to bring kids of all ages and grandparents of all ages and come, do a project with us together. And then we really do it because we know that Health for All is possible, right? It's equity, and it's access, and it's all kinds of crazy regulations, and that's why not everybody has access to good health care, but it is not impossible at all. And it is definitely a global good. I think the pandemic maybe taught us that more than anything, that things affect people in one part of the world affect us everyone, everywhere. And so it's really to everybody's benefit to keep our entire population healthy. Here's just some photos from some different sites we've worked at over the years. I'm just gonna point out that top one there, because that's one of my favorite stories. That happens to be in India. And I know we said we work in Latin America, so why do we have a photo in India? Because we work with suture, when you're having an operation, the thread that they stitch you up with, and apparently there's all different kinds of suture for different surgeries and things. Well, when you don't have the suture, you can't have the operation. And so that's a really lightweight item that's easy to ship. And so we will send that to places that are not just Latin America, because our stuff to Latin America goes on these big 40-foot shipping containers over the sea. But that stuff we can ship. So that hospital, it's a heart hospital, and they treat people who can't afford to have heart surgeries in a city called Miraj, India, which I have no idea where in India that is. I just know that's the name of the city. But this photo that they sent us, all of these children had heart surgeries with suture that we were able to send from Pittsburgh here. And the reason we get the suture, when somebody's gonna have a surgery, they stock the OR with 3 times the amount of stuff they're gonna need, which is actually really important for us, because if something happens while you're under, you better hope that surgeon has everything they need right there, right? So it's good, except the problem is when the surgery's over, everything in that OR just gets discarded. It won't go back into the inventory closet. It is part of the cost of the surgery. So we can actually get a lot of suture from that. It's never been touched, never been opened. We also get suture when they're reordering new stuff or switching brand. There's all kinds of reasons we'll get full packages of it. But so these are, each little packet is hundreds of dollars, and super valuable in lives as well. That's about it for me. Does anybody have any questions I can answer? Yes.
Where's your facility?
We're in Green Tree. Do you know where that is? Okay, yeah. Right off the Parkway. Actually, now that you know that we're in Green Tree, if you're driving on the Parkway and you look over, you'll see our sign. Sometimes you miss it because you don't know it's there, but yeah, we're not far. We do, if anybody's interested in getting involved, I will say, so we have volunteer shifts 5 days a week from 10 to 12, 1 to 3. It's a great activity to do with a group. So one of the pictures I had was Providence Point Senior Living Facility. Yeah, so the residents from there come once a month to a shift. They come on a bus. Sometimes we have like book clubs or, you know, bridge clubs or whatever, craft clubs. Maybe that's an activity you might want to do once a month. Potentially, I don't know if there's transportation here that you might provide if you came as a group from here, but it's a really nice way to come and spend a couple hours. You sit, you know, you can have a sitting project, you sit down at a table, somebody's working with you, they're telling you exactly, count these many things, put this many in a box. I mean, it's a very guided activity, and it's a nice social way to, you know, spend some time too. So we'd love to invite you to come in if anybody's interested in scheduling that. Yes?
Do you have a dental portion?
That's a great question. We don't have a dental portion always. That being said, sometimes dental offices are like closing down and somebody will contact us. And so we're certainly happy to take those items and make the right match for them, make sure they get to another dentist. So it's not something we collect regularly, but we certainly would not turn it down either. Do you have a connection to a dental practice?
I'm a retired dentist.
Are you?
Yes.
What happened to your practice?
I sold it.
So probably somebody kept the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Is there an opportunity for us to be able to put together personal care kits here if we are unable to get that transportation, although I'm pretty sure we can?
Yeah, so if when groups put together personal care kits outside of Global Links, they have to purchase the items. We can't like bring them to you. But if you have the funding and can purchase some items, then certainly one of us could even come here, talk more about personal care kits, how the program started, why it's so important, who the recipients are, and then, you know, sort of guide the process. Or if you're doing it like, maybe it's a book club one day and you just want to like make, you know, 10, 20 kits while you're talking about your book or whatever, I can just send instructions. It's pretty simple to do, yeah. So yes, absolutely. And although we do get these items covered by grants and stuff, never even close to enough. So we're really relying on groups outside who are also put like 10, 20 kits really adds up when 20, 30 groups are doing it. So it would be hugely helpful. Any other questions?
Do people volunteer to do things like dentistry or surgeries through your links?
They do not volunteer through our links, but there are, you know, different organizations, like a lot of church groups will go on mission trips to provide medical care. We can provide items to the group that's traveling, although we don't organize the trips. So we do work with a lot of different groups that travel and provide dental and medical care, and they request items from us, and then they can hand carry those with them.
How would we determine when is a good time for you guys to meet us? Say, for instance, we want to choose one day a month to come down. How do we match?
Yeah, I'm your person. I do all the scheduling, so I can let you know when good times are. You can tell me what's a good time for you, and we can work it out together. Yeah. We always know when people are like, we are very well prepared, so, you know, we'll know some groups are coming. Our team will make sure that the project is identified, it's all laid out, it's ready to go, they're there, and they can help explain it to you. Like, you're never gonna get there and be like, well, there's no work to do, or they're so unorganized. I mean, we've got it down to a science, and it's not me who has it down to a science. I just schedule it and then I hand it off, but our team is really, really good at what they do. So your time will be well utilized.
And one thing to remember is the facility is fully accessible. So if you use a rollator, it is very easy to get into our center, and we have seated
Thank you so much for having us. We really would love to work with any of you all. The other thing we always say is we feel like Global Links is one of Pittsburgh's best kept secrets, but we really don't want to be, so tell a friend about us. If anybody has items that they can't use anymore, we have an easy drop off. You don't even have to walk in the building, just pull up in our parking lot. There's a shelter, but also just spread the word. Yeah.
Do we supply anything to you? Or
I don't think that we work
you have a link
here.
to this place?
Do we have a link to this place aside from you? We do?
Yeah, we have met with Eric before, so for example, sometimes when things are changing here, like furnishings, we can step in and give a home to those furnishings.
Yes, so apparently we do. But I think there's always more ways. So Kimberly was just talking about furnishings, and that's one of the big things we've started getting since COVID. So many of the big corporations that had huge office buildings downtown are letting go of entire floors of those buildings, which makes a whole lot of extra office furnishings. And we've been accepting them and sending them out to our partners. And the amazing thing is that, when I'm saying it takes 2, 4, 6 hours to get to a clinic, and then you get to that clinic and there's nowhere to sit down, there's people in front of you and there's nowhere to wait. So we've been sending all those office furnishings to go as like waiting room furniture, desks and chairs for the doctors and nurses. We just saw a presentation from our staff. They just traveled to Honduras and they just got back and showed our staff a presentation today, but so many of the photos were of people either waiting, sitting on the floor waiting, or the newly arrived desks and chairs that the staff were using, what they were using before, and then what they're using now. So this clinic or this hospital in Honduras, it's actually in Roatan, which is an island off the coast. It was an old wooden hospital, the only public hospital that served the population. Roatan is also a popular place to go for vacations, and so they have private hospitals, but the local population cannot afford to walk into a private hospital. Well, the whole thing burnt down this spring. No casualties, they got all the people out, but they lost every ounce of the building and everything inside. And so our team was able to, we already had some shipments ready to go to different places that we then diverted to go to Honduras so that they can use them for this hospital. So that was a lot of the photos that were coming back. But after that fire, do you know those big like wooden spools that they wrap the electric cables around?
Yeah.
That's what the doctors were using as a desk to sit and write notes about their patients because they didn't have anything else. So we saw the before pictures of them sitting at these spools and then the after pictures with the furnishings that we sent from some of the corporations around here. Just really, really impactful. And then the other thing is when you think about where would those furnishings have gone, they would go in the trash. I was giving a tour to somebody from BNY Mellon, not even about office furnishings, about getting involved with their employees on a volunteer basis. And she said, we're just redoing our offices. The stuff all has to go like in 2 days for the new furnishings to come in. She thought they were gonna just trash them. We were like, we can take all that stuff, And so just thinking about all those items that would just be sitting in landfills, but really are so invaluable to our partners. Well, thank you again so much for having me. Happy to answer any more questions if you have them. Would love to have anybody come out and volunteer. Karen has my email. You can come out on your own if you wanted, but I think it's more fun with the group, so we can coordinate that, whatever it may be.